And, and here with Mr. Jimmy Fell himself, my man. So short notice fight, absolute savagery. How we holding up? Talk us through the damage, the weight cut. What was the situation? Talk us through all this sort of chaos.
So obviously, the fight was. I mean, it was 6 days out when we actually got the call, but it wasn't confirmed until sort of 5 days out. So I had it was £18 to go in 5 days, which I know a lot of guys cut more weight than that, or they cut it on short notice. But I'm not a big guy at 145. I don't cut a huge amount of weight. I mean, for the 2 fights before that, back in 2019, I woke up on the day on weight, like not a big weight cutter. So it was a real big shock for me. We got it done. It sucked, but we got it done. During the fight, I don't want to blame the weight. I can't blame the weight cut because I felt okay in the fight, but I'm sure it did have an effect. I mean, it does affect weight affect you. So I can't blame the weight cut, but I'm sure it did have an effect. As far as sort of damage from the fight, I'm okay. I got a bit of a bruise on my head. That's about it, really. Other than that, I'm okay. It's the weight cut's done a bit of a number on me. I'm having some stuff like I can't keep any food down at the moment. I've lost a little bit of weight since then. I think it's just sort of messed around my metabolism or my digestibility a little bit, just because of the drastic weight cut, if you know what I mean, massive dehydration. But I'm sure I'll be fine in a couple of days. It's just that sort of weight cut is new to me,
So the nature of that sort of situation then, were you training in the build up for it? Was there any news you might get a call to sort of step in? What was your sort of prep before that point?
Nothing at all, really. I mean, we were prepping for a fight later down the line, sort of like end of July sort of time. And we knew Cage Warriors was on, obviously. Everyone knows it was on. And we got the call saying, do you want to fight? We need someone on 6 days' notice. So I said, who is it? They told me it was Rory Evans. We had a look at him and I thought, yeah, I think I could. I said, it's a very tough fight, but I think I'm capable of beating him. And it was originally at 135 he was fighting at. And I said, there's no way I'm doing that on 6 days' notice. I said, if he wants it at 145, I'll take it. And they did. So at that point, it was just a case of just get on with the weight cut and it's just going to be a lot of sweat.
So with the weight cut, they normally have the build up, you have the calorie deficit for X amount of time, the water loading, everything else. What was your, I don't know, plan of action for that amount of time, really?
I was in a slight calorie deficit anyway because I was looking to drop down. I immediately started on the water loading. So, I mean, I know everyone does it differently. So I think on that Friday, I did sort of 4 litres of water, and then the next day 6, then 8, then 8, and then 8. And then I drop it right down the day before weigh-ins. And obviously at a very high calorie deficit, sorry. And then on the Tuesday night before weigh-ins, Wednesday, yeah, I just had to sweat it out in a hot bath. I think over 2 hours of cutting on Tuesday night, and then I did the rest on Wednesday morning before weigh-ins. But it was about £12 overnight, which again, I know guys do a lot more than that, but for me, that was just completely alien. That's not something I do regularly, and it was definitely a new experience. It wasn't pleasant, but we got it done.
I mean, this is the nature of these things as well. And you say about other guys and stuff, but it's all well and good what they do, but you're the one doing it, you know what I mean? And this is the fact, it's another element of your experience growing and growing and growing again. First time fighting professional, first time on that stage, first time, all this stuff is all brand new. So the fact to take this, I mean, fair enough, the size of those fucking cojones, but there we are. I mean, regards of the refuel, the game planning, anyway, the time to sort of prep it. Obviously, in the whole build up in a fight camp, normally you have your time to prep, time to be opponent specific, if you do it that way. What was the general thought process going into this fight from no specific prep as such?
I mean, we obviously looked at the guy first and sort of came up with a game plan, but it was very much on the fly. Looking back now, we would have gone with a totally different game plan. We kind of messed that bit up, but that's sort of part and parcel of a short notice fight. You don't have everything, you don't have the ideal game plan. The rehydration was okay. I never quite enjoy sort of rehydrating and things like that because it's just not something I'm very good at. But that was particularly difficult because again, it was a bigger weight cut. With the sort of game plan, because he was smaller than me, he was shorter than me, he was sort of he had shorter reach. The idea of the game plan was to stand with him and keep it long. Looking back now, what we would have done is taken him down first and got to a dominant position rather than allowing him to close that distance like I did, and then him get the takedown in a dominant position. Because I think on the ground, I think I was just as good as him. But once someone gets a dominant position on you, you're in trouble anyway. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, I managed to survive the choke attempts and everything like that. And I got out of mount a couple of times, but it's dominant position for a reason, you know. So looking back, we would have looked to take him down if we'd had more time to prep and sort of really go into the game plan a bit more. But, you know, he had the better game plan. He closed the distance, took me down, and, you know, he done the job. He kicked my ass. So, you know, hats off. I have to take my hat off to him. You know, he really done a number on me. So,
I mean, there's a lot of things to take from it still. Again, first time on the stage, size of the audience and everything else. But again, the nature of, I think your composure still, because again, you weren't just sort of laying there waiting for it to be over. You were playing a very good fight and being very active for your back, being very active in bad positions. Again, it wasn't, you know, as one-sided as you should be, very modest sort of making out. Again, it was a very, I thought it was very interesting sort of exchanges. And then what you're saying there is very interesting as well. Getting that advantage, that dominant position, Belgrade's call it what you want, position is position, gravity is gravity. And again, it's understanding you're working from that deficit at that point to try and get your position back. Now, regards of your general prep, just in general. So again, making this leap to pro anyway, how does your amateur camps vary to this ideal full camp Jimmy Farrell look like? What is the difference regards of the way you prioritize things? Does it change much?
Yeah, I mean, when we've obviously got a full fight camp and we have a specific opponent, we'll look at what they do well and we'll look at what we're looking to implement. And it's just a case of the drills we do are just much more specific. So, like for example, this guy, he took me down with a single leg, so we would do, you know, a lot of single leg work. Obviously, he didn't have a huge amount of pressure on top, but he sort of moved and adjusted very, very well to my movements. So we'd look at sparring that position with someone not necessarily holding you down, but someone who's just adjusting constantly with you. So you kind of have to almost outthink them or get ahead of them. You know, they're different kinds of movements that you just, you know, some people do them, some people don't. You just kind of have to adjust for each camp that way. Like you say, I was obviously very active off my back. I was never just going to sit there. But, you know, like you say, when you get to that dominant position, when you're put in a bad position, you have to make bad judgments as such, you know. Right towards the end of the fight, I'd back myself up to the fence. One of the things I like to do is I like to put my feet on the fence and bridge off of there to try and get a better position. As I went to do that, I had to let go of his wrist in order to push myself up. Obviously, when I do that, that gives him an extra hand free, and that's what allowed him to pin my head and start landing strikes. But you have to make those decisions. Do I keep his hand here and then stay here indefinitely, or do I take the risk and try and escape? And obviously, that's the kind of deficit you're at when you're in that kind of bad position. And that's why we would have not allowed him to do that. Had we had the full prep time, we would have said, no, he wants to take you down. He wants to go to the ground. We're going to put him in a bad position first before he ends up doing it to you.
I like that a lot. I like the way you're sort of explaining the intricacies of what these positions are, opposed to just, he's got a top game. What does top game mean? And the difference between the lay and pray versus the sort of movement, the agile sort of adjusting. And again, like I say, the decision making, picking your poison as such. Again, like, you're in there anyway. What's your options? Again, it's understanding this kind of extra layer. Obviously, with Windy Miller, someone that experience can help build these camps and build these preps. Now, regards of what camp looks like for yourself normally, then obviously saying a very opponent specific regards of their traits, their habits. Are you one who does individual disciplines as well as the collective MMA? Are you pure MMA? What does your usual training look like?
No, we do everything. We break everything down, and we do everything individually, and then we put it all together in the MMA. I think that you know, when we do things like when we spar in our gym, we do very, very light sparring because it's very difficult to learn when you're under pressure. You know, you learn when you're sort of relaxed and when you're sort of almost playing with it. So I think that with MMA, because there's so many variables, you have, you know, punches, kicks, knees, elbows, takedowns, submissions, everything like that. There's so many variables you almost can't relax to a certain degree. Whereas when you're just striking, you know, you haven't got to worry about takedowns or anything like that. So you can just play around with striking. When you're just doing jiu-jitsu, you haven't got to worry about getting hit. You haven't got to worry about this so much. So you can just play around with jiu-jitsu. And then when we do our MMA sessions, we do put it all together. And I just think that for me personally and for our gym, it just helps us learn a little bit better. You know, when you break it all down and focus on it a little bit more. Obviously, there are guys out there who do just MMA. I think that's just a very individual thing, and it's just whatever works for you. You know, if it works, it ain't wrong. So
do you have any sort of harder sparring days? Let's say percentage wise, say it sounds like you're doing like a 20-30 kind of like bit, not too light, but again, you're sort of still throwing the shots with full extension, sort of connecting.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of do sort of 30-40% with the sparring, maybe up to 50% usually. When we go into fight camp, sort of a few weeks out, we'll sort of step up the sparring intensity and the power and things like that and go a little bit harder. But that generally is only for the guy in fight camp. As a gym, we don't like bashing each other up because you just get injured, you just get brain damage. It's just not worth it. And again, you don't learn anything like that. But when you get to a point where you're in a fight camp, you're 4 weeks out, it's like, okay, you're not going to learn anything between now and then. Now we need to make sure you can do these drills and do these movements under pressure. And that's what we get. That's when we start to increase it. But only once we know that we've got these particular strategies worked out, that's when we just start to pressurize you and make sure you can do it under pressure.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot, the way you sort of distinguish times to do these things. Again, a lot of people will have their hard days on a regular basis and they'll have the sort of one side or the other. But again, having that balance and the time and the reason behind doing a certain stage, I like that a lot. Now, in your sparring, is a lot of positional things, a lot of specific work. Is it all open rounds? How does it tend to be sort of split up normally?
We do a bit of both. We tend to do the sort of the drills in fight camp. We'll start off with drills and then we'll turn gradually sort of merge into positional sparring as we start to get a little bit better at it to increase the pressure. And then towards the end, we will just do full open rounds where you can just put everything together. So we do both of those.
Oh, definitely. Again, this is where, is it more positional or is it situational? So, for example, guard just in general, or guard trying to stand up, trying to make sure you're down on the round, sort of person on the bottom needs to win, or top down or something like that? Is it more general position or is it circumstantial?
It depends on it depends on our opponent and what we're trying to do. Like, for example, if we know that a particular opponent is very vulnerable to an armbar or a specific submission or a specific thing, then we will focus on that. If it's just a case of they're going to take you down, you're going to end up in guard, then we will just play guard in general or play from underneath in general. Do you know what I mean? So again, it is very opponent. We can depend on what we're trying to achieve, and it depends on the guy as well. Because some guys who we've got, they've come from sort of like a temp planet gym, or they've got a really good no-gi jiu-jitsu background, and they're really good off their back, and they're quite comfortable there. So they tend to be a little bit more open, and we let them sort of play around a little bit more, as opposed to guys who maybe come from a stand-up background where it's like you don't want to be there, just get up. Do you know what I mean?
No, 100%.
So again, it's a very individual thing.
I like the way you're sort of answering that as well, because again, it's not general. If you're predominantly a striker, why would you want to be playing rubber guard? Who's that for? You know what I mean? You're not any brave, have a day off.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, one question I've got for you, again, your artwork, incredible, but regards to time spent getting that done versus training, how do you do that? How do you manage your tattoos versus actually training? Because it must get in the way, surely. The shading as well, I can't be forgiving.
Yeah, no, the tattoos, I generally have to time those with either injuries or when I've had a fight. So generally I'll speak to my guy and I say, look, I've got a fight on this date. Can we get a tattoo in for just after that? Because I'm going to have a couple of weeks off anyway. Or if I get injured, then I'll book in a tattoo for them because I can't do much anyway. And that's basically how I have to do it. Like sometimes I've gone sort of like a year or two without being tattooed just because I haven't had the time. If I've had a busy year, for example, that's just it's just one of them things. Unfortunately, I just have to work around it.
When you get them done, are they pre-thought out again, like a collective theme you're trying to go for? Is it by the artist himself? Is it more of a sort of freestyle kind of idea of what you want to go with? What's your general tattoo ethos?
Sort of like I'll have like a basic idea and style, and then my tattoo artist Billy, he trains with me now. He's a really good guy. I trust him with everything. I just say, this is what I want, and I want it in this kind of style. You just do your thing, and I just let him have almost free reign on it. And then as we're going, we sort of do tweak it a little bit, but more or less I can tell him roughly what I want, and he'll come up with something amazing. So,
what's next on the list?
I'm going to get my arm finished off. I've got the inside of that arm and the back of that forearm there. I'm going to get those finished off, get that sleeve done. But yeah, I've got a couple of things I want in there in a similar style to what I've already got, but just going to let him have free reign on it almost.
I'm say the amount of hours of shading on that. I mean, now braver man than I with that. But I don't know. That's a lot of hours.
Yeah, it's not plenty. I mean, no one makes me tap one of my tattoo artists. So
that's a good start. What about the whole torso sort of chest piece? Like, how long did that take? Because obviously that's obviously the biggest piece you've got, I'd imagine.
I think from memory that was 24. I think that was 3 8-hour sessions that we. I think we did a couple of little touch-ups in there as well, but that was about 3 like sort of full day 8-hour sessions that we did.
What's been the sorest? What's been the hardest one to get through?
it was definitely the chest, right on the breastbone,
sort of thing,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was the worst. I mean, I've had both my nipples blacked out with this tattoo, and that bit in the middle was so much worse.
Oh god, I don't know where to go with that. That's just a bit fair play. That's all I'm saying. I couldn't confirm that. That's it's impressive. Um,
Thank
regards
you.
of your next sort of prep, next camp, what is the
Yeah.
preference now? Is it ideally have a full camp fail? Is it is it stay ready so you don't have to get ready? Is it a long camp? What's your general preference with this?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always ready. I'm always fit. I train full time. I coach in the gym. I'm always fit. I'm always ready to go. I'm not necessarily always on weight because obviously we all walk around a little bit heavier than we do, and I tend to train it off in camp. But I'm always fit. I'm always ready. As far as wanting a full fight camp, definitely. We as a general rule in our gym, we don't take short notice fights. That's the first one I think that we've ever done that I'm aware of, because that's what happens. You don't have the best game plan. You have a rough weight cut. You don't give the best account of yourself. But given that it was my pro debut and I had the opportunity to fight on the biggest stage in Europe for Cage Warriors at York Hall, where I've always wanted to fight, for us it was worth the risk. And it was that fight was a roll from the start. And I'd do it all again. Even knowing the result, I would do it all again because it was one of the best things I've ever done, and I learned so much from it. Even with the loss, the only thing I regret, the only thing I wish I could change was I wish that had happened sort of towards the end of the round. I wish I just had a bit of time to show what I can do before that happened. But yeah, we always want a full camp, full prep, everything like that, and then we go from there. We very, very, very rarely take short notice fights, just because there's nothing wrong with losing as long as you're losing for the right reasons. If you've lost because you had a hole in your game that you need to work on, or you need something to learn, or maybe the guy was just a bit better than you, you can deal with that. You can improve on that. You can work on that. If you lost because you turned up and you weren't fit, or because the guy was left-handed and you weren't adjusted for that, or you didn't have a game plan because you didn't know who the guy was, you don't learn anything from that. Do you know what I mean? If you sort of go out and you go, oh, if I'd known that, I would have been able to beat him. But
Whose fault's that? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you don't learn anything by doing that. So therefore, you're just taking a loss for no reason. So, the thing we got out of this fight was I got a huge amount of experience. I got to fight away, stay in the hotel, got to do the away game, which I've never done before. I got to fight on Cage Warriors, which is, one of the best things ever. I got to fight at York Hall, where I've always dreamed of fighting. I had a fantastic experience. And now if I go back to Cage Warriors, I've been there before. If I go to one of the local shows, I've been to a bigger show before. It puts it in a bit of perspective for you.
That's very good actually to have with this whole situation, because again, like for a lot of people, the pro debut, the big moment, again, it sounds very much this big deal because it is to an extent, but ultimately in a pro career, what is one fight in 20, 30 plus fights? What is one? And this is the nature of why this is so important at this stage now. Now you've got that out of the way.
Yeah.
You've had that experience already. Next time the bigger events pop up, the bigger occasions, the bigger position in the cards, again, you've got that extra bit of experience. I've had this on a worse way, everything else. So when I'm there, primed and ready, who's going to beat me? Who's going to phase me? Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. And yeah, like you say, the debut is very important. Obviously, all your record does matter at pro level. It's not so bad at amateur, but as a pro, it does. But I lost to a guy who was, he was a good fighter. He was 3-3. He's been a pro as long as I've been training. It's not I lost to a mug. Do you know what I mean? You don't get any mugs on Cage Warriors. I've lost to a really good guy on 6 days' notice with a bad weight cut. I'm not worried about that.
Strange things have happened. It's not. I mean, this is something of a lot of respect for yourself and anyone else who's competed on Cage Warriors. Is the nature of what it is. It's the big platform. It's a tough fight. Again, there's no cans. There's no bums on those shows, and this is where you kind of get the high risk and the high reward. But again, that's how it is. Regards of, again, I know it's still quite fresh, but you still seem very much, composed, very mature. But how was the initial reaction after the fact? Is this something that was quite a natural response? Was it quite a bit of a sting? How did you take it initially?
It stung. It stung really bad, because we wouldn't have taken the fight if we didn't genuinely think I could pull it off. We knew it was a big ask. We knew it was a long shot. We genuinely thought I could pull it off. It did sting, but then as I sort of calmed down a little bit and I rewatched the fight back, and I looked at it and I just like, I just made a mistake. Do you know what I mean? right at the start of the fight, I throw a right hand, I hit him with the right hand, he puts his head down, I throw the knee, and he picks it up and takes me down. You know, one mistake is all it was. It wasn't like he came out and completely bulldozed me and I didn't get to do anything. And then when I was underneath, I was doing the right things, I was making the right moves. It was just he's one step ahead. So after sort of calming down and watching it back, I felt a lot better. But yeah, it did sting. It really did sting.
Well, no, a lot of respect for it as well. I mean, that's the transparency I really respect because of the nature of what this is. You're meant to be, this hard-nosed cunt who, doesn't get phased by anything, but no, you're a person. Like, this isn't a sport for people who don't got, any sort of thought capacity or any kind of emotional investment. Like, you don't do this because, it's easy or because it's just fun. It is fun, but Christ, it's not easy. Not the slightest.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a huge emotional investment for me, probably more than most people. I get very emotional about it. It means a huge amount to me. I spend all day in the gym. I had a really good job before I started doing this full time. It paid me loads of money for not a lot of hours, and I jacked all that in and closed it all down so I could go and do this because it's what I want to do. I've got no money, I have no time. I spend all day training and fighting, and I do it because I love it and because I want to do it. So it's a huge emotional, and that's the only thing I get out of it, really. There's not a huge amount of money. You don't get a huge, you get a bit of respect, but, there's always people who criticize you and slag you off and all that kind of stuff, especially when you lose. Everyone likes to stick the boot in, but you do it because you want to do it and because there's that huge emotional kind of result you get when it does go well. So
when you talk about your emotional investment and how much it means to you outside of the obvious, what is it about this sport that gives you that kind of drive, that kind of, I'm going to put more eggs in this basket? What is it that it gives you that, I don't know, makes you feel that way?
I have no idea. I really don't. I mean, I couldn't tell you because I've never been big into other sports. I can't stand football, anything like that. No other sport. I mean, I used to box and I loved boxing, and I had the big emotional investment in that as well. I think it's just combat sports in general. I think it's just something where you do go in there with another bloke who is, on a normal fight, they've spent the whole training camp training to fight and beat you, and you've been training to fight and beat them, and you both go in there on your own, the cage or the ring is closed, and you both just throw down and see who's the better man on the night. I think it's one of the most honest tests of yourself you can do. I think that's what it is, because I can't quite put my finger on it, but
now
I've never been into it.
That's mainly the competing side of it, and again, that kind of in the moment. But regards of the training side, the consistency, because again, the real question with this is, how do you keep going when it stops getting easy? So, for example, you first start full of beans, full of enthusiasm, but then, work gets in the way, you're tired, you're sore, you're cutting weight, you're a bit, obviously not, massive cuts before, but again, you're still getting a bit gritty, getting a bit rougher. Is it the fear of losing? Is it the want to win? Is it just the general thing itself? What keeps you going?
All of that. It's the fear. It's the knowledge that there's someone out there who's training to kick your ass. It's the want, the desire to win. I think as well, I'm insanely competitive. I cannot stand losing at anything. So when we're sparring in the gym, even though it is all playful and things like that, we're not hitting each other hard, but we are trying to hit the other person, not get hit back. When we're rolling, we're not trying to hurt each other. We are trying to get subbed on each other. I can't stand losing. I can't stand giving up position. I can't stand any of that. So it's just that insane competitiveness. If I have a bad day in the gym where everyone's sort of done a number on me, I'm really pissed off about it. And I think that's the main thing. It's just that insane competitiveness, that competitive drive that you have to just want to be better than everyone else. And I think every fighter has that. Every fighter who takes themselves seriously, they just have that desire to be better than everybody else.
100%. Now, when your number does get caught, again, you get subbed, you get a thing. How do you react to that in the gym? Obviously, getting frustrated is one thing, but do you catch yourself and try and be composed? Is it just more emotion gets invested into it? How do you deal with the times where
it depends on what it is. If it's like normal training, then I just sort of laugh and go, for fuck's sake, you got me, well done. When it's in fight camp, I have been known to take my gloves off, throw them across the mat and storm out the gym. It has been known once or twice for me to do that. It's when you roll. I mean, when you roll and you get subbed every day, it just becomes part and parcel. You still get annoyed, but you just keep going. You get better at it. When it gets into fight camp and the pressure's on a little bit, and you're tired, and you're dropping weight and things like that, that's when it can get on top of you a little bit. I tend to keep going, but then if it does keep happening again and again and again, I do tend to storm. I have been known to storm off the mat and sort of go to cool off a little bit, but it doesn't happen often. It's only in fight camp.
I'll quote you on that. It's one of those things. Again, it's a very important thing, and the fact you care that much is why you react the way you do with these things. And again, it's investment. Anything. It's hours in. It's not just are you training because you love it. It's also you're not working full time anymore. You know, you're coaching and doing what the passion full time. And I don't say it's work very deliberately because again, it's very different. It's hours spent, hours put in, but it's not work. It's very different. It's passion.
Outside... Yeah, and you never. Yeah, so you're never pissed off with the other guy. You're always pissed off at yourself for getting caught with it. You're like, I know I'm better than that. That shouldn't happen. So you're not pissed off with them. You're pissed off with yourself.
No, definitely. So. Now, regards of self-development and things like that, are you one who watches tape on yourself quite a lot? Will you watch a fight back time and time again after the result, or is it sort of leave it there, it's been and done? Or
I have done, yeah. I do tend to watch tapes myself. We record a lot of our sparring as well, and we watch that in the gym. Particularly if there's a particular mistake or a particular thing we keep getting caught with, we will record the sparring and then watch it back and say, look, this is what we need to fix, or this is what you did. Because when you're sparring, you're making a mistake, you can't see it, or you can't tell when you sort of, you got your coach nagging you saying, stop doing this, or you're doing this, and you're like, you don't even realise. So we tend to sort of watch things back quite a lot. And we watch opponents' fights. We watch other people fight and then try and bring what they do into the gym as well. We've got a big sort of plasma screen telly in the gym, and we, a lot of times we will, especially outside of fight camp, we will spend some sessions where we will watch someone like George St. Pierre. We'll watch some of the things he does, and then we'll try and implement that in our drilling and things like that. And it's one of the sort of things about modern technology. You've got to use it. You got to use it to get every edge you can.
Oh, 100%. Because otherwise, what's it there for? And it's the nature. Because if you don't do it, everyone else is doing it anyway, so you just get left behind. Yeah. Going forward with your next fight, again, obviously not regards of dates and nothing confirmed yet, but regards of weight and things like that, are you going to be one who's going to cut again? Are you going to try and walk around the same sort of weight? What's the preference?
Oh, Christ, no. I don't want to cut like that again. I mean, I was about 164 at the time when they told me about the fight. So obviously I weighed at 146. I generally sort of train the weight off, and then like if I do have to cut anything, I cut like 2 or 3 pounds the morning of weigh-ins. Like for my last 2 amateur fights, I actually woke up on weight, like on the day of weigh-ins. I didn't have to cut weight at all. And I do train off. I do get a little bit heavier, and I'm a bit heavier than normal at the minute because I've been doing a lot of strength and conditioning. Obviously, hadn't fought since October 2019, so I was a bit bigger than I usually am. But I was in the process of sort of training that weight off over sort of 6 to 8 weeks. We just happened to get the call at the sort of the wrong time, if you know what I mean. But yeah, for my next fight, I have no intention of being anything over sort of 150 pounds fight week, which is what I'm not. Yeah, I think it just sort of lends itself to me as well because I'm a very good gas tank. I tend to be very durable, despite what that last fight might make you think. I'm very durable. I've got a good gas tank. I'm not particularly strong and explosive anyway, so having that extra size, I don't think it's a huge benefit to me. But having that endurance and that gas tank from not cutting weight, I think it just lends itself to my style a little bit better. I know a lot of guys who are bigger. My brother, for example, when he fights, he cuts a fair amount of weight, but he's very big, he's very strong, very explosive. So it just lends itself to him a bit better.
It's Alfie.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right.
I remember seeing him fight. It was it Impact? I think one was.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Say I remember that show. It's middle of fucking nowhere, but again, it's good event. He performed very well. I say it was a little while back.
Yeah, well done.
That's the one. Thank you for your time, my friend. A couple of questions to leave you on. These are the ones I ask everyone. You're about to walk out. You come into yourself. What advice do you give to you before you walk out to make sure you perform in the best headspace?
What advice do I give myself before I walk out?
Yeah.
I don't really do anything at that point. At that point, it's all done. I just try and stay as relaxed as possible. There's nothing really going through my head at that point. It's at that point, there's nothing really going through my head. It's all just clear. I'm just very relaxed and just ready to go. I'm not really thinking about anything at that point.
No sort of words of wisdom. No sort of just have fun in there sort of thing.
Sorry?
No sort of words of wisdom. Nothing to sort of keep you in a calm
No,
sweat
not
space?
really. By the time we get to that point, I'm just ready to go. I'm relaxed. I'm chilled. I'm very sort of clear. Yeah, I've just never had anything in my head at that point, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a good problem to have, I guess, if you're composed enough to not have to even speculate and worry and overthink it. No, more power to you with that one.
Yeah.
This is a personal favorite question. Post post competition, win, lose, or whatever else. What is the takeaway? What is the celebration, celebratory meal? What's the commiseration meal? What's the damage? Pizzas.
Oh, um, after a fight, it'd have to be probably a two-way tie between Mexican food and Wagamama's.
Oh, strong choices. Wow, my man, after my own heart. What go to Waggers? Let's talk to Waggers first.
So Wagamama's.
Yeah. What's the order?
Yeah, I like the Vigatsu curry, like the seitan one. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Absolute screamer next time you go. Mixed mushroom steamed buns. Love to see him. Love to see. Fucking banging. Okay, and the last one, brand new guy walks in the gym, full of beans. What rule of thumb do you give them to start on the right foot?
So for someone brand new in the gym,
Yeah, enthusiastic, wants to get stuck in, wants to be the next Jimmy Fell. What advice do you give them?
just turn up. Just keep turning up. It's boring, it's repetitive, and every coach says it, but just turn up. That's all you can do.
That's half about. Thank you very much, my friend. Where can people find you in the old social media?
You can find me on Tomahawk MMA on Instagram or Jimmy Fell on Facebook. Yeah, just want to give a shout out to my sponsors if I can: VXS Gymwear, Street Kings, Your Health UK, and Jim Heard of My Osteopath. Guys, keep me on the mats, keep all my gear done. If you use my codes on my Instagram, you can get discounts on there as well.
Fantastic stuff. And check out the podcast sponsors, the English Hypnotist and Good Performance Nutrition. Again, when it comes to mindset, English Hypnotist, working with Rich, absolutely game changing. I'm using him this camp and it's been worlds apart. Absolutely love it. And Good Performance Nutrition, affordable protein. Again, Dan Good's he's a very people oriented person and the products that speak for themselves. Thank you very much, my friend. Links to those will be in the description.